Hello, greetings, and welcome to Awaken Age of Revealing. This is Doug Michael. Before we begin today, huge thank you to all my new subscribers, and I do enjoy many of the comments, ladies and gentlemen. It's just that I cannot physically get to all of them. There's just not enough time. If I don't answer your comment specifically, please don't take offense. I try to get to all of them, and it's just impossible. The topic for today's discussion is maintaining the focus to advance. And ladies and gentlemen, if we look at the world around us, we notice that patience is not one of humanity's greatest virtues. We live in an instant gratification culture with a short attention span awareness operating as the standard norm, and it has gotten much worse with the rapid expansion of technology. Through over a century of cultural indoctrination and mind control achieved through manipulating imagery in 30-second soundbite news stories and electronic media convenience, most people no longer take the time to read a book or research anything beyond a 5 or 10-minute YouTube presentation, thinking they can get all the information they need in just a few minutes of their short attention span. We have been intentionally indoctrinated and steered away from any type of deep thinking based on the convenience of our soundbite education and the indoctrination mills we foolishly call schools. This devolving into a world of short attention span thinking and perception did not come about by accident, and if you want a definition of what dumbing down means, then we can see this type of soundbite education as a major part of understanding what dumbing down means. It takes time to read a book. It takes time to dig into things more deeply. We have a vast network of information from which we can learn on the internet, but the vast majority of people do not avail themselves of this wealth of information to educate themselves. Instead, they prefer to bury their attention in video games or watching short YouTube videos that don't really educate them in many cases, but which often only serve as tools for misdirection and expanding the brainwashing paradigm of the controllers. This is especially true where information about spirit is concerned. Everyone seems to be in a hurry all the time. Because of this short attention span culture in which we live, we observe egos quickly jumping from one activity to the next and never paying attention to the world around them. They find more value in rehashing their opinions on the current episodes of the latest and greatest reality TV or daily soap opera show than they do in placing any value on learning something that might expand their awareness. We live in a world of cognitively robotic parrots, where people repeat the news stories to others, believing the propaganda as the truth, and never once digging beyond the superficial propaganda to seek the truth behind the lies. Hell, after all, it takes time for one to develop the skill to start thinking for yourself. It takes time from one's busy daily schedule of continually yakking on their cell phones, playing video games, or the constant pursuit of distractions, so our egos just plain don't get bored shitless with themselves for not being constantly entertained. I'd like to point out to my listeners that if you find you have time for such meaningless pursuits of time wasting, then don't whine about how much time you don't have to advance yourself. Doing so is only excuse-making, and that doesn't stand up to scrutiny from a second cognition perception of reality. Excuse-making is nothing more than avoiding one's own personal responsibility to do something at all. In this world of indoctrinated short attention span behavioral habits, developing the focus to stay the course to advance ourselves seems like an overwhelming obligation that most people are utterly unwilling to do. We have been so indoctrinated with the hurry-up first cognition world of instant gratification that most do not understand the word patience if it means waiting more than 15 minutes in a grocery store line, and even then, this is just too much time for the ego to spend doing something other than the next bit of cognitive escapism it wants to pursue. At the outset of this cognitive journey, when one embarks on it, we have all these ingrained behavioral habits that we have to overcome. And I'll be the first to tell you that breaking these habits is a bitch. The process of eroding our perceptual first cognition habits doesn't happen in a flash, and you are being pretty unrealistic if you think that watching soundbite presentations of information is going to deliver you any great amount of wisdom. If you believe that, then you are simply deluding yourself. Even the videos I present are only an invitation for those interested to dig more deeply for understanding than simply taking my word for it. If you honestly take a step back and be brutally honest with yourself, then you will most likely find these same shortcomings in yourself. Hell, the entire culture is programmed this way. So for one to think that they are immune from this type of programming is pretty naive. To stand in denial of this observation does not alter the truth one iota. For untold generations we have stood by and let others dictate to us what reality is and what it isn't. We are told what to think, how to think, when it's appropriate to think it, or whether we are allowed to think it at all. In order to step into the second cognition and contribute to creating the new paradigm, you're going to be required to break these habits. You're going to have to quit relying on simply taking the word of others to shape your perceptions and your beliefs, and this includes the pressures exerted by the herd to make you conform to herd norms. There is no magic wand approach that is going to help you break these habits in an instant, and to expect such a thing to take place is, at the least, very unrealistic. If you intend to bring about this change in yourself, you're going to have to develop a focus that the consortium controllers have done their damnedest to indoctrinate out of you. If you look around you with all honesty as an observer, you should readily notice how many people say they will do this or that, then never fulfill their statements. Everyone is going to do this or I'm going to do that, and they never seem to get anything done. Everyone has such a long gonna do list that nothing gets done except making excuses for why they don't do things. Half the time, they can't even remember what they were going to do unless the issue becomes so pressing that they can no longer ignore doing it. This is what short attention span indoctrination has done for our species. It has turned the majority of people into meaningless, forgetful jokes, but this serves the controller's agenda to the max. They want you stupid, distracted, dumbed down, and completely unable to focus, because only a population that is so distracted by these means is utterly controllable. In order to move into the second cognition and become a fully functional, cognitively aware human being, you're going to have to transcend all of this programming. You're going to have to find the wisdom to see these elements of control of your own consciousness while the ego rules your mind. The ego can't stay focused on much for any real length of time. This is why religions and spiritual traditions worldwide are filled with a bunch of part-timers, what Endall calls spiritual tourists. You can't be a spiritual tourist and expect to progress to the second cognition and become a contributing member in shaping the new paradigm. The new paradigm has no room for freeloaders or excuse makers, so if you happen to be one of these people, don't bother trying to drag that shit into a world of responsible individuals committed to make it a reality, right? You have to pay to play, and the pay comes through your own individual commitment to succeed, not simple lip service and being a spiritual tourist. The primary commitment is to yourself, to change for the better, and this takes focus and personal determination. No one indoctrinated into our global cultures has the necessary focus when we start this journey, because we all carry the programming that has steered us away from being aware of the world that surrounds us. We are constantly bombarded with distractions, and it seems that we simply jump from one distraction to the other without giving a single thought as to how we are being manipulated. We have been lied to so long as a species that the truth seems ludicrous. This observation illustrates just how effectively the consortium has corrupted our consciousness, and also illustrates one of the major hurdles we face as we learn to develop the focus necessary to succeed on this path to greater cognitive awareness. This is why only those with unbending intent will develop the focus to make the new paradigm a reality. The book Becoming offers us this insight. Trust the process and keep on keeping on. The future of all depends on the ability to take the difficult decisions of each moment. The emotional strength to do what is necessary is available to all who are committed and who hold the highest and best good of all as their guiding principle. Each is asked to do only that which is the best they can do in the moment, and to hold no regrets as to the decisions that are made and the actions that are taken. To learn to trust oneself within each moment-to-moment experience is to mature into responsibility, a necessary process for sharing the birth of a new paradigm. As each moves through the levels of experiencing into wisdom what is chosen, there is never a lack of the need to exercise courage, vigilance, and perseverance. They are the hallmarks of maturity and the signal that completion of a cycle of experience is at hand. Each must decide what point of maturity they have reached and if they are ready to take on a new level of challenge. This is not a project for the faint of heart, the lacking in courage, and those without stick-to ability. Do you know where you are in relationship to this opportunity? The stick-to ability is the finding within yourself the means to develop the focus to embrace a vision of yourself as an ego-transcended human being, to be a human becoming human, not simply remaining a tool for those whose only desire is to turn you into a robotic slave. Yes, learning this type of focus is hard work. I won't lie to you about that. Through all of my videos, I have emphasized this point over and over again. None of this is easy, and anyone who tries to tell you different is either a liar or someone who doesn't have a clue what they're talking about. Only experience brings these kinds of insights, not regurgitating the words of others and wishing that it will magically come true for you. This is why the spirit path is called a discipline. The discipline is the requirement that you recognize these failings within yourself and find the determination and develop the discipline to transcend them. You need to find the courage, just as stated in the passage from the Becoming book, to give the controllers and your ego the big middle finger and tell them that they can shove all their systems of control right up their consortium asses. So long as the ego controls our consciousness, it is nothing but an agent for the consortium, buying all the consortium lies and beliefs and making their world your world. When you dethrone the ego, all of these systems of control are useless against you. Your mind becomes truly and totally free. Their systems of control are focused on competition, hatred, divisiveness, and elitist thinking. There is no room for such handicapping consciousness in the new paradigm. We live in a world where we find tyranny at every turn, even within our own minds, with the ego tyrant buying into one consortium belief after another. We have trod the road of tyranny long enough as a species. Only those who have learned the lesson that tyranny in all of its forms is nothing but a cognitive dead letter box will find the courage to transcend that system of consciousness and find the second cognition. Endall and I have both crossed that cognitive threshold of the second cognition. When we share these messages, they are written from the standpoint of experienced cognitive actualization. We are not peddling wishful thinking or magical promises of cotton candy escapism that serve as the foundation of every fabricated spiritual teaching on the planet. I don't say this to glorify either one of us, but to illustrate to my listeners and subscribers that the second cognition is an achievable goal. If we did it, so can you, but it won't be done if you can't develop the focus and discipline to make it a reality for yourself. When you can accept this truth, then the new paradigm doesn't seem to be such an unreachable or unrealistic goal, as the Becoming book instructs us. The birthing of a new paradigm of experience upon this planet is an exercise in cooperation rather than competition to determine which is the stronger force. Cooperation through focus and intent within the underlying laws of the universe has power to manifest that is incomprehensible to the average mind on this planet. The functional brain of humans has had its activity purposefully lowered to prevent the movement towards freedom that these messages are designed to initiate. It is important that those who take this information seriously and intend to become part of the cooperative creative focus also intentionally begin to exercise their mental capacities. This can be done through games, experiential learning, and any other method that will separate them from the influence of the media and other dumbing down activities that are everywhere in the modern environment. The brain, like the body, deteriorates if it is not exercised. In order to focus and hold to a commitment, mental and emotional clarity is of the utmost importance. Reading information that is contrary to the promoted dogma and focusing thought for the purpose of discernment as to its validity and the possible intention of the writer is also recommended, including these messages. Much can be ascertained from them by intuiting the purpose of them. Each will, without doubt, intuit different reasons through this exercise. When they refer to games in this passage, they aren't talking about video games so much as games that require more free thinking. I will admit that video games do present the players with challenges and that they have to think about strategies within those games, but we really have to ask whether we want any kind of world where Grand Theft Auto is an impeccable goal to achieve in a world of cooperation, rather than glorifying theft and murder and passing such shit onto our children. We also have to realize that such contrived game scenarios are also part of the media control to misdirect our consciousness down the snake pits of consortium thinking. Hell, look at Dungeons and Dragons and how many people got all wrapped up in that consortium swill mill of magic and fantasy. I want to take this opportunity to provide a real-world illustration about how the energetic law of attraction works. I know that the New Age has totally corrupted this concept, and you have to realize that corruption was by specific design to misdirect us from finding the true power of the law of attraction. Endall and I are prime examples of how the energetic law of attraction works. Out of the millions and millions of videos on YouTube, how coincidental do you really think that our coming together to help promote the new paradigm is? On a planet of 7 billion inhabitants, what is the likelihood that two individuals with the same focus would magically come together, unless, of course, the energetic law of attraction is some serious shit? This is how we view it occurring, and neither one of us thinks we are pulling this out of thin air. Now, if you take this energetic law of attraction as a reality, then you also have to take into consideration the fact that since we started working together to put out the messages in these videos, my subscribers have increased by over 200 in less than a month. Obviously, these messages are energetically resonating with many of my subscribers, or I would be driving them away rather than gathering more if there wasn't this point of energetic resonance. Endall and I are prime examples of the spirit of cooperation in action. There is no ego competition between us as we work together to put this information out. There is no ego one-upmanship in the process, and there is no friction. We are individually cooperating with a single focus to bringing about the new paradigm. Now, I don't share this information to glorify either one of us, but only to illustrate to my listeners that this world of cooperating individuals without the need of individual arrogance and competition can take place. In many respects, Endall and I could be perceived to be advanced scouts for the ground crew. Between us both, we have almost 50 years of combined research knowledge which we are sharing through these videos and books. Much of what we are sharing with the rest of the ground crew is designed to help others avoid the pitfalls that we each encountered on our own paths. Within this mix is also Mrs. Beall and all of her years of experience in energy work to help guide others away from the traps of energetic misdirection such as Reiki. There are presently only an unknown handful of individuals in this process at the moment, but I have every confidence that these ranks of activated individuals will gravitate to and find these messages as the energetic law of attraction brings us together. What took us decades to figure out is being delivered with the idea that if we present this information to other members of the ground crew or those who choose to become part of the ground crew, that they can potentially advance somewhat faster than we did by pointing out the points of cognitive ambush created by the consortium to misguide us into their cul-de-sacs of bullshit beliefs. Just like advanced scouts in a military operation, we have gone ahead to scout out the terrain and expose these ambushes, and those listeners who are wise enough to capitalize on this information can save themselves a lot of time and pain on their own paths by avoiding these consortium traps, or seek to remove themselves from them once they are exposed for what they are. By exposing these traps, it is our desire that those who come behind the advanced scouts can activate faster through knowing that these traps not only exist, but how to avoid them altogether. Every one of my videos and the books by Endall and Mrs. Beall serve as challenging agents to the cognitive status quo because they run contrary to the promoted dogmas of the consortium on as many levels as we can discover and share with our listeners and readers. All of these video presentations offer my subscribers and listeners an educational platform and workable tools for advancing their own consciousness, provided the listener takes these tools for advancing their own consciousness and uses them. A hammer cannot drive in a nail until someone picks it up and makes use of it. In order to advance into the second cognition, you have to pick up the hammer and do your work. The hammer is not going to drive in the nail so long as you just watch it and wait for it to happen. You will be old and gray before you see that happen, and the same truth applies to advancing your own cognitive awareness. You have to do the work. At the beginning of our process, we are all filled with doubt and wonder whether we have the determination to stay the course to follow this hard road. If you allow it, the ego will doubt you to death. It will get bored because the process is just too hard, and it will constantly push you to toddle along into some easy and more comfortable form of mental escapism, if you let it. You can want this to happen as much as you like, but as the Becoming book tells us, there is a great difference in the application and concepts of wanting, believing, and knowing. Wanting only creates more wanting. Believing only says that one thinks the process will work, while knowing accomplishes the intention. It is the degree of difference gained by the actual experience of seeing the application work that allows for the knowing to become accepted and applied with ease. The first attempts at application must be reasonable and believable in order to reach the knowable level of acceptance. What we desire is that each and every one of you realizes that you can do this. Your spirit consciousness knows you can do this, provided you can get past every doubt the ego will throw at you as just another insecure mechanism of its control over your mind. Healthy doubt and skepticism is a good thing, but when self-doubt becomes a paralyzing influence, your ego will kill every attempt you make to advance yourself. The ego is insecure and filled with doubt, and this self-doubt will haunt you at every turn so long as the ego has even a modicum of control over your mind. You have within you the knowing that you can transcend this ego doubt that only leads to wanting and believing. You only have to find it. You may not know it's there, but we do, so let us convince you that you do have it within you if your focus and desire is strong enough to uncover it. This process at times can be extremely discouraging, and your own ego would love nothing better than to have you throw in the towel and simply give up on yourself. Don't do it. That's the easy way out. And the consortium controllers not only want you to give up on yourself, they expect you to stay a slave to their words, their politics, their religions, their authorities, and their educational indoctrination. They have worked tirelessly over the generations to make us all compliant, to be nothing more than another slogging member of the herd, and they control all the herds. You are more than that. And when you discover that spirit consciousness within, you are going to discover a power you can't yet imagine while under control of the ego. This is the power of freedom, not some bullshit superpower or levitation trick, okay? It is the power of knowledge and wisdom, the power to realize that as a personally responsible individual operating with impeccability along with millions of other individuals operating from the same platform of impeccability and respect, we can remake this world as one of cooperation and not competition, where every ego is fighting with every ego to assert and enforce its own version of the herd mentality. When the ego is removed from this equation, the world that lays before us is as yet unimaginable. But I'm doing my best to try and imagine it. Our desire is that you find these messages encouraging, and you are invited to try and imagine it as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I extend my gratitude and my thanks to any and to all who take the time to consciously advance their cognitive awareness and to search for the truth. Thank you for taking the time and listening to Awaken the Age of Revealing today. This is Doug Michael. Until next time, walk in peace.